Good morning, I'm William Bruyere. Big news headline this morning, 37% of small and medium-sized businesses can't pay their rent. Wow, that's a big statistic and kind of hits us in the face of what's happening with inflation, gas prices, etc. So let's talk about the reasons why this happens. Number one, there's a lot of supply chain issues in the economic system in general, and this seems to be pervasive throughout the world. So that means that if you can't get product, then you can't deliver to the customer, and that delays a sale, recording a sale, and also delays you getting paid for that sale. So this can be delayed sales or keep you from getting product to make sales in the first place. So that's a major challenge. Inflation, of course, it's all over the news. We're up over 8% annually, the inflation rate. And so what does that mean? It means people are reducing their discretionary spending. Everything is going up. And so when you have increases in prices, that means that the inputs to something that the end consumer is going to buy is going to be higher, and that means that the suppliers have to raise their prices, and ultimately the end consumer pays more. So this is combined with the increase in fuel costs, because fuel is a major part of the inflation rate and the cost of transportation in the economy. So if you're a producer and you've got to ship your product to whoever is going to buy it, then you're going to have an increase in prices due to freight. Some people are adding surcharges and things like that to highlight the fact that it's solely due to transportation. But nevertheless, it flows through the economy to the end consumer. Labor continues to be a major challenge for everybody. The post-pandemic world seems they're calling it the Great Resignation. It's not that people actually resigned necessarily, but people found that they could do with less. Some people that were near retirement decided to retire. Other people found that they could do with less, and many people liked the idea of working from home, working remotely. And so they're insisting on that. I'm not sure how popular that is with employers. There seems to be two diverging opinions because there's pros and cons both ways to that. But so you have this problem of not having enough labor, and consequently, and when there's a shortage of labor, prices go up. People can ask for more money because they have choices. If they don't like this particular job and the wages aren't what they think they should be, there are other jobs out there at the moment. So it's definitely, the labor market is skewed on the side of the employee at the moment because of labor shortage. You know, the recession causes a general slowdown in consumer spending because people are afraid. They're afraid of what prices are going to be. They're afraid, are they going to have enough money? So consumer spending slows down. So almost everything that is discretionary in nature, you know, that could be dining out. It could be beauty type things like massages and things like that. Could be travel, could be vacations. So there are lots of things that people have decided to, if they have a choice, they may not be spending on at the moment. So in addition to that, since we're talking about rent today, that there are escalation clauses in most rental agreements, meaning you start at a base rent, and if it's a 5-year lease, there's typically an escalation clause, meaning the rent goes up slightly year over year as part of that agreement. So all of these things are major contributors to costs going up. And when costs go up, if you're not charging your customers more, you're not making as much money. You don't have as much cash flowing through your business. And ultimately, you can have a challenge paying your rent. So if you're in that situation, what do you do about it? Well, the first thing is bad news doesn't get better with age. So you want to take action immediately. First of all, as a CFO, I would recommend that you have a cash flow projection that is forward looking, not historically looking, meaning you don't care where the cash came from in the past. You want to try and project what your sales and your revenues and your cash flow looks like in your business, forecasted out for at least 6 months. Now, that's not always easy. A lot of the inputs to a cash flow statement from a forecasted standpoint are unknown, but still having a cash flow forecast with the best information you have at your fingertips in the moment that you construct it is better than not having any information at all. So what is the purpose of that? It's to flag you on any cash flow crunches you might have at a particular moment in time. And so in some cases, you can predict that, gee, I'm going to be short on cash. And so what am I not going to pay if I don't have enough cash? And sometimes that comes around to my rent is a big expense. I may not be able to pay my rent or pay my full rent. So, but bad news doesn't get good with age. So act on it immediately when you see that you're going to have a problem. People hate being surprised with bad news because they often always have the attitude that you must have seen this coming. And so people don't like those kinds of surprises. But look, if you have that and you need to engage your landlord, be honest about it, be professional about it. It's just business. This is not personal. It's just business. But your landlord doesn't care about the whys and the wherefores of why you can't pay your rent. They've got their own challenges in running their own business. So don't be making excuses. The reality is that you're in a situation that is somewhat of your own making, and you have choices in those in that formula in terms of price, how you price things and whatnot. And the landlord has the same challenges. So he doesn't want to hear any whining or crying, if you like, around how you got there. Together you have a problem and it needs to be worked out. So the second thing is, maintain a good relationship with your landlord ongoing. Pay your rent on time. You signed a rental agreement. The terms and conditions are crystal clear in every rental agreement. So make sure that you pay your rent on time and have a good relationship with your landlord. You need the space. He needs a tenant because he's invested in this property. So you both it should be a win-win situation. And when you have a problem, you should be able to work through it together. Looked is know the repercussions of not paying your rent. I think people often underestimate the importance of knowing what the terms and conditions are of their rental agreement. Know what the escalation clauses are and when they will kick in, but be aware of repercussions if you don't pay your rent. What are the possible actions that a landlord can take, and be aware of them and knowledgeable about them. It gives you a couple of pieces of power. First of all, knowledge is power, so you know exactly where you stand. There's no questions. Also, it gives you some negotiating power, perhaps, if you can talk about and know about the possible actions of the landlord, and be somewhat empathetic. The landlord is the other side of the transaction. So your landlord, think about it from their perspective. If you were the landlord, what would you do? So remember that the landlord has their mortgage payments, their building maintenance to look after, and the reality is that they don't want to have to take action against tenants. Legal fees are expensive. They went into that lease the same as you did in good faith. Everybody expected that we'll continue on. You're going to be there for probably 5 years. If it's a lot of leases are 5-year leases. And everybody expects things to go well. The big challenge is we never quite think about or prepare for the eventuality of something going awry. So when you have a challenge, be proactive about it. Contact your landlord right away. Give it some thought. Have a plan. What are you prepared to do with the landlord? If you just call him and say, gee, I can't pay my rent this month, he's not going to be very sympathetic. But if you've given it some thought and you have a plan in place because you've looked at your cash flow going forward, then the landlord is going to, first of all, they're going to see you as very professional. And second of all, they're going to take into account the fact that you've looked at both sides of the equation, and it's a negotiation. Now, be prepared that the landlord may or may not accept your plan or the components of it, but typically it is a negotiation, and so you may not get everything that you want in your proposed plan, but most landlords don't want to take legal action unless you've been a poor tenant. Poor tenant meaning you've given them grief, you're high maintenance, you're always complaining, or you don't pay your rent on time. Then the landlord may take the opportunity to trade you in on a new tenant, possibly, if he's not very happy with the relationship. So a good reason to have a solid relationship with your landlord. And lastly, don't hesitate to get advice on these situations. So if you've got an outsourced CFO, which I'm proposing that you do, then this is a great opportunity to lean on them for advice. They are very familiar with, property leases and rental agreements. They've seen perhaps multiple types of agreements. They can guide you through some possible steps, helping to devise that forecasted cash flow, helping you develop an action plan to rectify the situation with your landlord. And if you need to, if you're not sure that you understand the terms and conditions of your rental agreement, then get a hold of your attorney and get them to interpret it and explain it to you so that you've got all the facts at your disposal to be able to make an informed decision on what possible plans you might make or what actions you might propose to your landlord. In any case, just to summarize, take action quickly, be direct, know your cash flow, have a plan in place, don't complain about your situation, and negotiate with your landlord in good faith. They don't want to take legal action against you with respect to your lease.